There's more stuff happening at OTAs at practice for the Texans, and some things that I feel that we're already getting out of it that feel really interesting. All right, so we're going to play a little choose your own adventure here, John Lopez. You good with that?
I am.
All right, so yes, it's a French-ass name, Yvonne. But yeah, do you want to go O-line or do you want to go quarterback?
Well,
we said it quarterback, right? We got to worry about quarterback, right?
The old newsman in me says,
if it bleeds, it leads.
We got our franchise quarterback. What we need to worry about that for?
What's the headline?
He ain't hurt.
What's the headline? What do they want to talk about at the old water cooler, which nobody ever really does, I don't think, but maybe a little bit.
Do we still got water coolers, like, for real?
That's the thing. Yeah, there's not a whole
hanging out at the water cooler.
Yeah. So
how do people waste time at work nowadays?
Yeah, they're on their phones.
Yeah, just in a stall on your phone.
They're on their phones. You got to lead with the quarterback.
All right, so
you got to lead with that. That's the headline.
We're getting video and dispatches from OTAs there in the bubble at NRG Park. And it's he's not wearing a helmet, but he is holding his helmet as he did on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And it does not appear that he will throw much, if at all, today. I think that's the way that Jonathan M. Alexander of the Chronicle has described it. And so we're trying to see if he throws. Somebody says CJ didn't throw yesterday. I'm freaking out. We actually don't know.
We don't know.
And I'll be interested to see if somebody asks Nick Caley, who I know is going to be available for the media. In fact, you'll hear that at 11 here on Sports Radio 610. I'm very interested because we know he didn't throw on Wednesday. We don't know whether he threw or not yesterday, which was Thursday. Maybe we get some insight. But at this point, that little nugget, that little mustard seed of what's happening there.
Yeah.
It's growing a little bit now, ain't it?
You're not sounding any alarms, or are you, Figgy? Are you sounding alarms? I don't know.
Nah, I'm not.
You're not sounding.
I'm not. I'm confident he will be on the field week 1.
Okay.
Oh, I'm at that point.
I am too. DJ Bienemy. CJ Stroud is all caps not throwing today at OTAs. So.
Okay, but the response that was given to us by head coach Nico Ryans when he was asked about this after OTAs, after practice on Wednesday, was people just have different
their own timeline.
Different timelines, different regimens was kind of the way that he, like, different schedules and regimens, which felt like, okay, is this like a day off versus a day on? Like, is that kind of thing? And it does not feel like it's that. What then is, how do you feel about his response there now that we have the additional data point of?
I feel a little bit more like I did on Wednesday, and that's not like I'm with Figgy. I'm not sounding any alarms. I think he will be, first preseason game. He'll be out there. I think at minimum, when you say everybody's on their own timeline, these are all guys that they're monitoring something or another. Not just, it can't be just his arm is tired. This is the first 3 days of since the offseason. So his arm can't be tired, but they're monitoring something.
Yes.
I mean,
exactly.
How could his arm possibly be? Did he play baseball in the offseason?
Well, we have no idea what he did in the offseason. He kept it real quiet. Well, shout out to the man. But I guess in a way, maybe this is where we did enjoy and appreciate him being pretty visible in the offseason, and we kind of could make some assumptions based off of the places that we did indeed see. Yeah, man, I don't know what to do with this, to be completely honest.
Right, that's a better way to put it.
I think more than anything, I just keep looking up and I go, ooh, okay, what could be there, right? What could be, and obviously, I think it'd be kind of absurd to think the guys that played this sport in particular come into every season feeling legitimately 100%. And then we know that during the season, the only time that you could even possibly be 100% is at the start of it. Like, we understand all of that. I think for me, that's the part that gets a little interesting, because you are still wondering if the offensive line is going to get to the place that you need it to be sufficient, talk less of maybe even good to great.
Yeah.
And CJ Stroud is going, like, look, knock on wood, but CJ Stroud has had to evade in the past, and I don't think it'd be there is some underlying thing. Is it something that can be exacerbated at some point during this?
And maybe that's what they're doing. That's why they're monitoring. But they're monitoring something. And then there's the narrative, the knuckleheads like us talking about it.
Knuckleheads is probably right, to be fair.
The fans, I won't call them knuckleheads, but the fans who are like, oh no, or whatever. If I'll go back to this, and I said this on Monday, and I feel a little stronger this way. If you know those narratives and discussions are out there, and you were okay, and I'm not saying he's injured, but you were good to go. Wouldn't you go just to kind of to shut everybody up?
I mean, he might want to.
Yeah.
Like this might be because that's also another part of this is how the way that he is standing is I become real reckless pseudo body language reader.
Yeah.
The way that he is standing, close to the action, helmet in his hands, almost as if at the first syllable of a sign to go and throw, he would be in there.
Yeah.
I think he wants to be in that circumstance. Like knowing who CJ is, seeming the enjoyment that he seems to gain from doing this, the love that he seems to have for the game, I don't think that this is a him holding himself out. Like this seems like this is an abundance of caution, which we know this organization seems to take. I think all of that makes me feel like it's probably not as big of a thing. However, that little, like I said, that little mustard seed of a question of a doubt. And yes, Joseph, I guess in theory that is a reference to like the biblical faith the size of a mustard seed, but ultimately that is pointing to just the smallest little molecule in there. And that's it really is just a small little molecule of what's happening there. It's that's not what that means. I don't actually know what it means, but I don't think it's that.
I'm going to use it however I feel.
Okay, actually, I think that's fair. That sounds good. I'm just going to sprinkle in some éclaircissement all throughout the program. All right, so we mentioned that, and we spent a lot of time talking about that. Another thing that it seemed like is already being mentioned and noticed out there at practice. I shout out to Cody Stoops for this one, who I've seen it from at first. It seems like Ariante Ursery got the first crack at left tackle before Cam Robinson, who I think we have largely looked at as the first look left tackle. That's exactly how I think we felt seeing him go be out there first on Wednesday. But on top of that, Jalen Thomas, who had played right guard on Wednesday, also has been at left guard. So that's another one of the depth when it comes to the 17 offensive linemen that this team has. But also interestingly enough, Juice Scruggs, who took no center snaps on Wednesday, snapped at center after Jake Andrews. So I guess Jake Andrews still was the first guy out there at center. Maybe do we read into that? And then also Juice is still in the running here. So that's at least four guys that you have rotating in at center. When you go Andrews, Patterson, Scruggs, and then remember Eli Cox, who is the UDFA that's in there as well, right? There's a lot of real. They're dedicated. They're true to this. We're going to shuffle this around, and I'm very intrigued to how much that actually worked. Because talk about a little bit of doubt. I don't know exactly how that ultimately ends up. It's
not spitballing, but it's just a little bit of everything at now every position. Ursery at left tackle is more like, hey, let's give him some reps there. I think Cam Robinson is still pretty much the left tackle in their view, but give him some reps at both sides. The Scruggs thing is very interesting. I think Jake Andrews, if I had to guess right now, is still probably penciled in. But they like Scruggs. They've said it. Remember,
they do
at center. So that I think they're giving some reps there.
And I'm still interested because it feels like the size that he has, or at least had. I still have not had an obviously opportunity myself to get a look at him. Feels like it profiles more to center.
Yeah.
And that's, like you mentioned, they've had a lot of love and respect for him. Very intrigued to see how that all comes together. And from the 281 here on the text line, remember, you can always get involved with the program by texting in 713-572-4610. But from the 281, do y'all think the way that the Astros handle injuries cloud our view on the way that the Texans handle injuries?
We might be a little scarred.
I think so, but also the Texans have their own stuff in their own right. Like if I just was to throw up one thing, Christian Harris, right? Like last year, the way that Christian Harris was handled gave us enough scars in and of itself, right? To then have some level of questions as to what is happening behind the scenes. Even if they're handling it possibly the right way, we just don't have the information on the outside to be able to evaluate that. And maybe that's ultimately the point.
As the 281 says, what in the air cliche small is going on with CJ?
I have no idea. But it feels like we're starting to stumble on the idea that he might be dealing with some level of hurt. I don't know if injured, because football players like making the distinction between hurt and injured. Might have some little bit of hurt. What does that ultimately mean? I think we can only really make reasonable assumptions rather from that. I think right now the reasonable assumption is there's probably a little something there, but I don't know how big of a deal to make.
Would it make y'all feel better if they did come out and say, yeah, it had some soreness throughout the offseason, but I'll be good.
Actually,
week one.
yes.
You want the real answer, or you want the answer that I probably should give?
No, it would for me.
Yeah.
Because the probably should give answer is along with you, where it makes you feel better. The
Yeah.
real answer is no. I feel like I'd become a little bit of the neuroses would set in a different place where I'd be like, oh no.
Yeah, I feel like we freaking out because they're not saying anything.
Yes.
But if they did come out and say that, and they say, yeah, it's just something a little minor, but he'd be good week one for sure. Ain't nothing to worry about. Then I'd probably feel better.
Yeah, we'll see what it looks like. But again, just another small data point in this. Did not throw Wednesday. Don't know. Like we have to remember, is a don't know, not necessarily a did not throw yesterday, but is not throwing on this Friday OTAs. CJ Stroud, the quarterback of this Texans team.